which are provided in the Tenancy Act itself. But nevertheless, the broader principle which is of procedural law is taken from the Land Revenue Act. As anything that is silent in the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, that will be taken over by the Land Revenue Act. The substantive laws are which wherein they deal with the legal rights and obligations, rights and liabilities between the people versus people and people versus state. And the procedure laws are the laws which provide for the rules to enforce these rights and liabilities. So this is the basic difference between the procedure laws and the substantive laws. So first of all, we'll start with the discussion on the Land Revenue Act 1956. Before we start with the Land Revenue Act, because it deals with the entire state of Rajasthan and the entire land that is there. Every inch of land is the ownership of the state, and that is what we are dealing with in the Land Revenue Act. Before we start, I'll just like to say that how the history of the state of Rajasthan. Prior to independence, there were about 19 to 20 various princely states, and they all had their own land revenue acts, like the state of Jodhpur, Bharatpur, Alwar, Tong, Jaipur, Jaisalmer. All of them, they had their own land revenue acts and own Rajasthan Tenancy Act. So they were, all the rights and liabilities of the farmers were adjudicated and their rights were given unto them. After the independence in the year 1947, all these about 19 to 20 princely states were brought in together in various stages. It's not that overnight the state of Rajasthan was formed. It took about 10 years to form the same, because final shape what we are seeing today is which came in the year 1956. So from 1947 to 1956, the process of reorganization and resettling in the entire India and the state of Rajasthan continued. So the first shape that took place was in the year was when the constitution was brought into force, and the schedule 2, which states which deals with the states, wherein the Rajasthan state finds placed in part B. But at that time, the state of Ajmer was not part of, Ajmer and Abu Road were not part of the state of Rajasthan. Thereafter, in the 1956, when the State Reorganization Act came into force, thereafter the state of Abu and Ajmer were also merged into the state of Rajasthan, and which gave the final shape of this state of Rajasthan, which we are seeing today. Now that is the broader shape we are dealing with of the state of Rajasthan. Now how do you administer it? How do you collect revenue? How do you manage the entire state? Now for the same, the territorial divisions are made. We all know we have districts, we have tehsils, we have divisions, but under what law? Which law says that you have to have a division, you have to have a district? Now this is wherein the Land Revenue Act comes into force. First of all, we'll go downwards. So first, the state of Rajasthan is divided into as many as 7 divisions, which is the broadly Jodhpur, Jaipur, Udaipur, then Bikaner. So these are various 7 divisions we are broadly divided into. Now these divisions are further divided. Now these divisions are more or less the states which were there prior to the independence, and the districts also. Now these divisions are further divided into the districts. These are the territorial divisions that is provided in the Land Revenue Act. This is section 7. Section 7 of the Rajasthan Land Revenue Act, which deals with the division of the territories. Now then there are divisions, districts, subdivisions, tehsils. So this is the hierarchy of the division of the territories, and for each of these divisions, it provides for an officer. For the divisional level, we have the divisional commissioners. For the districts, we have collectors. For the subdivisions, we have subdivisional officers. For the tehsils, we have tehsildars, and under them we have naib tehsildars. So this is how the hierarchy of the officers work, and these are appointed, and all are appointed under the Rajasthan Land Revenue Act. there is a specific chapter assigned for the same. Chapter 3 and 4. It provides for the officers and the appointment of the procedure of appointment of the officers. These officers, the Land Revenue Act deals with two aspects of the things. One is the administrative part and another is the judicial part. So whenever these officers, they are performing both the duties, they are doing the administrative work of the state, and on the other hand they are doing the judicial work. So when they are doing the judicial work, they act as a courts, and they are adjudicating. When they are doing the judicial work, they are adjudicating the rights and disputes between the two parties. Now, so there are two parts. One is the non-judicial part and another is the judicial part. Now, what are the judicial matters? There is a specific schedule 1 provided with the Land Revenue Act, which specifically defines what are the judicial matters. And the rest of the matters are the non-judicial matters. So broadly, I would divide the entire Land Revenue Act into 7 parts. One is the territorial division of the territories, which we have already discussed. Next is the courts and the officers, which we have also discussed partly. I'll continue with that. Then there is preparation of maps and the land records. Then settlement of revenue and rent. 6, partition of estate. And 7, collection of revenue. Now, the Land Revenue Act has a very widespread, because we are dealing with here with the entire land, every inch of the land in the state of Rajasthan. How to control, how to collect revenue, how to generate money out of it. And as many as there are about 50 rules framed thereunder. The Land Revenue Act itself and the 50 rules therein under. So whenever we see, I'll tell you one thing. Whenever we see an act which has a widespread, means when you look at the book and you go haywire that where do I catch this act and where do I go to the rules. And so in that sense, I'll just advise you to always see how it is constituted, how it is consolidated. What is the structure of the act? You go through the index, you will find the basic structure of the act. So when it's a small act, then it's no issues. You can always go through it and you will catch the specific points. You will always find where the specific thing is. When the act is having a very widespread, you will never come to know where provision, which section, which rule is in which rule and which act. So you have to catch hold of the entire structure of the act. So this is how we are structuring the act into seven parts. And then the rules. Even the rules also, when I say that 50 rules are there, then you will say that where do I find that which rule at the particular moment I'll have to look for. Now, those are also can be broadly divided into 3 parts. One is the procedural part of the land revenue. That is procedural in the sense the procedure to be adopted by the officers and the courts, their appointments, their functions, their duties. Next is the relating to the preparation of the maps, the settlement, etc. Now the third part, which these both are very rare, which we generally do not use, which do not come to the litigation. These are all administrative parts. What we are doing is mainly with the 40 rules thereafter left. These are the various allotment and pertaining to the allotment of the land and usage of the land. The Land Revenue Act provides for the allotment for each and every purpose, like the solar plants, like the gaushalas, the poultry farms, for the industrial purpose, for commercial purpose, or for all these purposes, wherever the land is situated. If it is an agricultural land, then it provides for the allotment of the same for a specific purpose, and for which a separate rule is framed. For gaushalas, there is a separate rule. For poultry farms, there is a separate rule. For establishment of solar plants, there is a separate rule. So whenever you are dealing with the particular allotment, you will find a relevant rule, a set of relevant rule for that particular purpose. We'll also discuss this later. Now we come to the courts and officers. As I had already stated, for each level of the hierarchy, there are officers appointed. But the main the chief controlling revenue authority is the Board of Revenue Ajmer, which is you can say that is the High Court of the revenue courts, because it exercises the entire supervisory powers. It is the chief controlling authority. It has the appellate powers, revision powers, and review powers. It has general supervisory powers over all revenue courts in the state of Rajasthan, starting from the Tahsildar up to the commissioners. It also, within the system, they also have a provision of a special appeal, like we have in the High Court. From a single judge member of the Board of Revenue, there lies a special appeal to the division bench. They can call for the record of the any revenue court and decide the issue if the issue is larger, having a larger effect in the state of Rajasthan. So they have a control over each and every revenue court, and from the revenue boards we have a remedy of a writ before this honorable court. So the hierarchy runs from the tehsil to the subdivision to the district to the divisional commissioner and to the Board of Revenue for all the matters. The first schedule with the Land Revenue Act, it clearly defines the judicial functions I have already stated, and thereafter the provision of the appeals is provided in chapter 5. The procedure more or less prescribed in the courts and the officer is the same procedure as it is provided in the CPC. But however, in the Land Revenue Act, Chapter 4, it only provides for the filing of the appeals, applications, service of the summons, but it nowhere states what in detail the procedure will be prescribed. Surprisingly, the procedure is prescribed in Section 208 of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, because more of the rights which an agriculture has is governed by the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. So more of the disputes we come across of the land revenue arise out of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, of which the procedural law is provided under the Land Revenue Act. But how much of the CPC would be applicable is provided in Section 208 of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. So whenever you see that how the procedure is established, if you go into the Land Revenue Act, in the Act you would not find anything. You'll have to refer to Section 208, and it says that entire CPC is applicable except as modified by Schedule 4 of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. Schedule 4 also runs into two things, and it says that whatever CPC provisions which are not applicable, and Part 2 says which are applicable by way of modification. The modifications are stated that it will be modified to this extent, and rest of the CPC is applicable. So mostly the procedure is broadly followed by the courts is the Civil Procedure Code, apart from what is stated in the Act, because anything that is stated in the Land Revenue Act will always prevail if it is contrary to the CPC. If CPC says anything that is contrary to the Land Revenue Act and which already has a procedure, then this procedure will follow. Now the next, so this is pertaining to the officers and the procedure to be followed. The Board of Revenue is established at Ajmer. It specifically provides the qualifications, the sitting of the members, how their selection is to be made, their jurisdiction. It is all provided in the Chapter 2 of the Board of Revenue. Now the important chapter and the next topic is the land. It is Chapter 6. Now this chapter deals with the ownership, allotment of land for the various purposes. Now whenever we say that the entire land belongs to the state, we say so, that everything which is not ours belongs to the state. But where is it? Which section, which act says so? Section 88 says so. Everything on land, every water body, everything inside the water body everything inside the land, beneath the land, that is section 89, which pertains to the mines and minerals. So everything on land, under land, in water, over water, everything belongs to the state. It is a very exhaustive definition they have given, and it is very interesting to read as well. So I'll just read out the definition that is given under section 88. It says that all public roads, lanes, paths, bridges, ditches, all fences all fences or besides the same, all rivers, streams, lakes, tanks, canals, watercourses, or standing or flowing water, all land all lands wherever situated. If it doesn't belong to anybody else, it belongs to the state. So this gives the state the overall ownership of everything on land and under the land. Similarly, when we are dealing with the mines and minerals, which you must be dealing, section 89 is relevant, which says that the right to all minerals and mines and quarries and to all fisheries, navigation and irrigation in the from a river shall vest in the state. So all the mines and minerals as well vest in the state of Rajasthan. And when it also provides that when any right is given to any other person and there is an hindrance, then the land can be taken from the owner by way of paying the compensation. Therefore, whenever we say that if the khatidari rights exist and the mining rights are given, although the consent of the khatidar is required, as we see in the mines and minerals rules, but nevertheless there is one provision, section 89 and 89, which says that even if it does not agree, then the land can be taken by way of paying compensation. Then we see that then next section comes is section 90A. This section is what we are dealing with each and every day. It's a section of daily usage, I would say, that every colonies which are developed on the private agricultural land, in the site, you can see that everything that is in periphery of after the municipal limits, every agricultural land situated in the municipal limit or outside the municipal limit, and when the same has to be put to any other use, the same has to be converted under section 90A. So all the colonies which are developing on the agricultural land are converted under section 90A. The khatidari rights are surrendered, and whenever this land is situated within the municipal limits or in the periphery area which is covered in the JDA or in the master plan, the same is surrendered to the JDA, and then the JDA allots you back the same land on the terms and conditions after charging the development charges. So when the land is within the JDA area or the master plan or the municipal limits, the same is surrendered to that local authority, and then they convert the same. Then we come to section 100 and 102, which provides for reserving the land for specific purposes. Now, when there is agricultural land and you want to establish an industry over it or a poultry farm over it, how do you get it converted? So these sections give the power to the state government to set apart the land for a specific purpose and then to convert the same for a specific purpose. So section 92, 100 and 102 are dealing with these provisions of setting apart the land, which it gives power to the collector to set apart the land for a particular purpose, that is for industry, commercial purpose or any special purpose. So for under the special purpose or any special public purpose, everything is covered. So whenever you need to set up set apart an industrial area outside outside Jodhpur, which is in agricultural land, the land is set apart for an industrial area, and then that industrial area for which then there are rules framed for each setting apart. When the area is set apart for a specific purpose, the rules for each specific purpose is framed, like rules for allotment of industrial land, rules for poultry farms, rules for even for other gaushalas, everything, or for all each purpose, the rules are framed. So when the land is set apart, then the rules govern the allotment. The allotments are made as per the rules which are prescribed. These sections 92, 100 and 108 only gives the power to the state government for setting apart the lands. And for the subsequent purposes, for the allotment of the things, the rules comes into picture, and rules govern the field. Now, next part we are coming to is the main purpose for which the act is, I would say, was framed earlier. Because rest of the thing, the industrialization and all poultry farms are all subsequent developments. Now this is the survey deals with the preparation of maps and land records. How do you think the entire, without the survey, without the khasra numbers, or without the numbers of each land being demarcation of each land, it is not possible to govern anything. Suppose you have a chunk of land, and you want to generate something out of it, and you want to divide it, and there are separate owners for each. How do you demarcate them? How do you calculate rent? So these are initially the survey and the settlement operations are initially done when there was nothing on record, and by way of these survey operations, the maps, village-wise maps were prepared, wherein each khatedar was told to demarcate their lands if they were the owners of the land, and then they were collected and the registers were prepared. Under this the entire maps are prepared of the village. Then the khasra numbers are given. As per for how the khasra numbers will be given, for them there is a separate rules. Khasra numbers are given. Now for the khasra numbers, then the owners are identified that who are having the joint ownership of that khasra, and to them the khata number is given, from where it gives rise to the name of khatedar. This is where the khatedar takes birth. It is like a bank account. The land is a bank, and you have a different account holders. So for each account holder, you are given an account number. So every person who is holding a land in various, suppose one person is having 2 or 3 khasras with him, that entire chunk of land which he is holding is given one number, and that is the khata number. And based upon that khata number, the entire revenue records are prepared. There are about 37 registers which are prepared by the Patwari. I was shocked to see the Patwari. Everything is defined how the Patwari works. The amount of work they have put in the land revenue rules is amazing. It's only that I think they haven't defined when the Patwari will go off to sleep and when he'll get up. Rest everything is governed by the rules. So he is preparing 37 registers, record of rights, and one we come across is the Jamabandi. Jamabandi is an exhaustive record of rights which it provides in section 113. Record of rights deals with the 113, wherein it shows the khata number. I'll just show you the pic of the Jamabandi. Here it is. Here, this is how the Jamabandi looks like. If you can see. Now here is the khata number given, and then is who is the owner, and then who is the agriculturist. So this is the khata number. And if there are suppose 10 people having a joint holding in this is the khasra number, having joint holding in the khasras, so all will have one khata, and they are known the khatedars because they own a khata. In the bank they are known as khata dharak. You can say, just for the purpose of explanation, and here we can say they are khatedars because they have a khata, they have an account in the Jamabandi, and which number is given. So from there they get the rights. Now these rights are not just like that. They have a very important section is 140. This give a presumption in favor of the record of rights. There is a presumption. You cannot say, okay, what if you have a name in there? It says everything. There is a presumption. Until and unless contrary is proved, you will be the person whose name is there, he is the owner, he is the khatedar, owner of the land, unless until contrary is proved. So nothing else needs to be proved. Once your name is there, there is a presumption under section 140 regarding the record of rights. And the record of rights is not only Jamabandi, there are several other registers, Khatoni, Khatabari, Khasa Girdavari, there are several other registers, but I will only give, and mainly what we use is the Jamabandi, which has a description of the Khatedar, the nature of land, the Khasra numbers, and then how much rent is to be paid. That is also mentioned in this, that how much rent for each killa is to be paid by the Khatedar. Then we come to the settlement of revenue and rent. So this is the settlement proceedings are undertaken wherein it is basically, I don't think so now it has been taken place, because earlier when there is a scope that revenue will be increased, then the settlement proceedings are undertaken, and they are undertaken by way of notification. It is notified that in this area settlement proceedings will be undertaken, and for the survey also a specific notification is issued. So in the settlement is basically for determination of the rent, and the officers they create out the chunk of the lands, they consolidate the chunk of the lands, the nature of the soil. Now, as per the nature of the soil and the rainfall, etc., the rent is determined, and this rent is charged from the khatedars or the landholders, which is we call the land revenue. This is what the land revenue is. Basically, the rent of the cultivators, it is charged killa wise and crop wise. Earlier, it was in the earlier era, it was in kind, like in the British rule, or even prior to that, even before that, it was in nature of kind, as 1/6 or 1/5 of the portion of the crops were taken, or even more than that, and they were shared by the zamindars and then by the British Raj. So each one used to get their own share. Now it is all cash, and it is mentioned in the Jamabandi what revenue is to be paid. Now the next chapter deals with the specific chapter which deals with the partition of the state. The rights, what are the rights of the khatedars and how they will be adjudicated, is part of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. Now, surprisingly, Rajasthan Tenancy Act only deals with the division of the land, but how the partition in detail, the entire process would be undertaken, is not provided therein. And surprisingly, a specific chapter has been assigned to partition of the state. Now it deals with in-depth analysis. Recently, I was caught in a problem wherein a case of division of holdings were there, and the procedure was not followed. I was looking into the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, which provides for, as the suit was filed under the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, as to where as the other khatedar was not joined. So I was looking as to how under what procedure is followed in the division of the holdings. I could not find. Then I finally found an entire chapter in the Land Revenue Act pertaining to the partition of the estate. Division and partition it's the same thing. Division is a partition among the co-sharers of the land. So this is a major chunk. It deals with how the partition would be done, who are the necessary parties, how the notices would be issued, and what preliminary degree and then the final degree. Now the next thing we are dealing with is the last point of the Land Revenue Act, is the collection of the revenue, which is the entire thing, which is what we are fighting for. Which is why this act is come into place, is the collection of the revenue from the tenants. Now the collection of the revenue, a specific chapter is assigned, chapter 10. This is a very important chapter, because for every government revenue which is due against any person, not only for the land revenue, like for the agricultural dues, whatever amount is there, whatever revenue is to be, rent is to be paid, which is specified in Jamabandi, the recovery proceedings are initiated. These recovery proceedings are similar to what is in the CPC, the attachment, auction and sale of the land. But nevertheless, this chapter is important, because every government due, to my knowledge, I think most of the government dues, like even in the electricity dues, the income tax dues, the dues, even in the latest act of the RERA Act, if any dues is against a person which he is not paying, they are recovered as dues of land revenue. So they are diverted to the Land Revenue Act. The certificate is issued by the particular authority. It is sent to the collector that suppose 2 crores are due from me and I am not paying, they will be recovered as arrears of land revenue. This is what is the language used in each act, each separate acts, that the same would be recovered as arrears of land revenue. So they are diverted to the Land Revenue Act. The collector is given the certificate, then the collector has a right to auction my land. So it gives the power to the collector to not only auction the land which is mortgaged, that is for this purpose, but for any other movable or immovable property of the person. So any immovable property which I have can be attached and sold for recovery of the dues under the Land Revenue Act and any public dues under any other act which provides for recovery of these dues. So this is we end the land revenue part, which was the most of the part was procedural aspect, and now we'll start with the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. As I stated, the Rajasthan Tenancy Act is a substantive law, and it deals with the rights and liabilities of the persons. Apart from that, there are procedural aspect also, and there are 2 or 3 chapters which are overlapping the Land Revenue Act. The first, so therefore 3 or 4 chapters can be given a go by for present purpose, as they are almost overlapping, like chapter 9, which deals with the determination and modification of rent. This thing has been dealt with in the Land Revenue Act in the settlement operations, because it deals with the rent. So there they have a specific chapter for it. Same is chapter 10, payment and recovery of the rent. This is also provided, which we just discussed, the collection of the revenue. So these 2 chapters are overlapping in the sense that they already have provision in relation to this in the Land Revenue Act, and they have parallel provisions in the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. So in whichever act the proceedings are undertaken, that those sections and those proceedings would have to be considered at that relevant time. Now, so far as the Tenancy Act is concerned, it is basically which we are caught is the weird nomenclature that we come across, like the khatedars, the gair khatedars, and khatoni, jamabandi. These are all the words which we get caught into, and we say that what is this? As I stated, khatedar is nothing. Khatedar is an account holder. The main ownership of every land in the state of Rajasthan, the landholder is the state. And for the purpose of cultivation, it is a tenancy. It is given on rent to us, for which the rent is collected. And this is what the Land Revenue Act is. It collects rent from us. The state collects rent from the agriculturist, who is the landholder, and gives it, and the land is given to us. So the landholder in the first column of Jamabandi, you will see the third column is Bhumi Dharak. You will always find the state of Rajasthan here, because it is the owner of the land. And then comes the Kashtkar ka naam, the cultivator, who is given the rights to cultivate. That is the khatedar. And the account is maintained. That's why we have this khatedar thing coming into force. We are the khatedar. Now the Tenancy Act provides for various methods of giving these khatedari rights. Earlier, the Jagirdari Act was into force, wherein the Jagirdars were there, and they had also given the land to the other cultivators to cultivate, who can be said to be subtenants. Now, when the Jagirdari Act was abolished, all the lands who were the persons who were cultivating, that is the khud kast. Khud kast means khud kast karne wala. Kast means cultivation. So if you break the words, the words are very simple. They are not that typical. Khud caste means person who is khud apne aap khud caste kar raha hai. So all the people who were doing khud caste, if they were given the khatidari rights by the force of section 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they all are sections giving the khatidari rights to the tenants, to the khud castes. The jagidars who were cultivating their own lands, which they had not given to the other cultivators, they were given the khatidar rights over these lands. So the sections 15, 16, 17, 18 all deals with the giving of the khatidari rights to the various khatidars. So basically there are four types of tenants which the Tenancy Act deals with. The first is the khatidar tenants, which we just discussed. Then is the maliks. Maliks were the persons in the abolition of the Biswedari and Jamidari Act, all the Jagirdari Act, all the lands which were held by them, they were recorded as maliks. So it's the same thing. No need to confuse, because now it's a gone era. So then we come to the tenants of the khud caste, the persons who were cultivating the land as khud caste, that also I just discussed, and they're the gair khatidar tenants. Now, what is the gair khatidar tenants? Now, khatidari tenants are khatidari rights are both inheritable and transferable, but the gair khatidari rights are not inheritable. They are inheritable, but they are not transferable. The persons, gair khatidars are the persons whom the land is given for cultivation, but however the khatidari rights cannot be given. Now this means that suppose there are section 16, it provides for the lands over which the khatidari rights would not accrue, like the pasture land, land used for casual or occasional cultivation, land covered by water used for purpose of growing singaras, land used for shifting or unsuitable cultivation. So all these land over which the khatidar rights cannot accrue, and they are like tank beds. Tank beds are also given for the cultivation, but however no khatidar rights can accrue, means you cannot transfer the rights therein. So in these the lands are given for cultivation, but however you cannot transfer and no khatidar rights can accrue. Therefore, these persons are known as gair khatidars. The only difference is this: the person who is cultivating and holding land but cannot acquire khatidari rights would be gair khatidar. Moreover, these are the also lands wherein certain there is a one Rajasthan Colonization Act wherein the colonies are prepared, set apart, and notified for allotment. Suppose we want to develop a new scheme like Shasi Nagar. Initially, it was a barren land, and now you want to develop it. So this is provided on the Rajasthan Colonization Act, that would be notified as a colony, and there the development works we will have a special set of officers who will develop the land and allot. And in those allotment, the khatidari rights accrue after 10 years, not prior to that. So even until that khatidari rights are accrued to them, they are also known as the gair khatidars. So apart from the fact that the rights are not transferable, the gair khatidar and khatidar have the same rights. Now we would we'll only deal with few of the important sections, and the next section what I feel is important for us is section 42. Section 42 deals with the, before that I will just say that the Rajasthan Tenancy Act deals with the primary rights and devolution, transfer, exchange, whatever of the lands you want to transfer the land, if you want to exchange the land, all these things are provided in the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. Now, what are the barriers upon transfer is section 42, which says that any sale, just a minute, I will just, which provides for general restriction on the sale and gift and bequest. the sale, gift, or bequest of a khatidari tenant of his interest in whole or part of holding shall be void if the B such sale, gift, or bequest is by a member of a scheduled caste in favor of a person who is not a member of the scheduled caste, and of member of a scheduled tribe in favor of person who is not a scheduled tribe. So this clearly bars any sale or transfer by a person who is a scheduled caste in favor of a person who is not a scheduled caste, and the same goes with the scheduled tribe also. They cannot sell or exchange inter se also. A scheduled caste person cannot sell or transfer or exchange the land with the scheduled tribe person also. This is done to protect the interest of these downtrodden and poor people of the scheduled caste, as well as the backward people of the scheduled tribe. So this is because so that the resources of the nation are not taken by a whole chunk of people, a small chunk of people, and it is distributed equally. And this restriction is provided so that this land bank, which is created for these people, remains with them. Otherwise, the other landholders, the other land grabbers will always manage to purchase this land during them, and ultimately these people for whom this land is given, they will be left landless, and the land would always flow to these powerful people, powerful and rich people. So therefore, the specific ban has been provided that no sale in whatever manner can undertake. Now the various questions arises out of this section, that whether the in the auction proceedings, if the land is attached, the bank can own the land and then auction it if it is recorded in the name of the bank, and then it can be auctioned to any other person, whether the bar would be attracted in the sense, or if it is a company like a jurist person, like a company or a partnership firm or of any other nature, and whether they can purchase the land because they don't have a company, doesn't have a caste, a partnership firm doesn't have a caste. So whether they can purchase the land. Now in this regard, there is a judgment of full bench judgment of this honorable court which is State versus Uka, which has put at rest all the controversies. It says that no other person than the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe person can purchase the land and in nobody's favor it can be transferred, because that will frustrate the very purpose. The reasoning given by the court is that if the section says that it will not be transferred to any person who is not a scheduled caste, even if the person doesn't have a caste, then also it cannot be transferred. So it cannot be transferred in the name of a company as well, because then it's a vicious circle. Again, the same would be misused. People will create companies, then they will purchase land, and again these persons would be rendered landless. So the whole concept that the court has explained in this judgment, this is reported in (2010) to DNJ page 663. This is a full bench judgment of this honorable court. Two are concurring, one is dissenting. Justice Vyas has been dissented. But it's a very interesting judgment. All have given their own views. Even Justice Vineet Kothari, who has gone with the views taken by Justice Mathur, has stated that since these lands which are near, which are otherwise this land which is auctioned, if it is auctioned only to a scheduled caste person, certainly it would not fetch so much of amount to release him of the debt of the bank. So it has, the Justice Kothari has stated that it needs an amendment so that at least a person's land could fetch a fair value. Suppose there is an adjoining land in just adjoining outside Jodhpur, one belongs to the scheduled caste and one to the general category. The general category land would always fetch, I think, 3 or 4 times the land of a scheduled caste person, because there are no buyers for it. So it has stated that the legislature needs to look into this and certain amendments need to be made. But nevertheless, as on date, no such land can be sold to any other person than to a scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Then we deal with the various suits that can be filed under the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, because it majorly deals with the rights of the parties and protection of their rights. Like section 53 and 88, it deals with the declaration degrees, the declaration of Khatadari rights, partition, declaration of subtenancy rights, etc. Section 88 specifically provides for declaration of various kinds, and these declaratory suits are filed under the before the specific authorities which are provided. I'll come to that later. Then comes the suits for injunction, which is section 188. Suppose anybody is trying to wrongfully eject you, then there is a section 188 which provides for permanent injunction against ejectment. Then important section is section 175. This is a section for the landholder, that is the state. It provides for ejectment by the landholder. When any condition is violated, when there is any condition of allotment, of condition of holding the land is violated, the state government has right to file a suit and to eject a person. One example, that suit is filed by the Tahsildar under section 175. If any violation of the condition is there, the Tahsildar cannot just come and drag you out. Like, okay, bye-bye, go out of the land. No, there is a specific provision provided. If you are a khatedar, if you are holding a land, nobody can eject you. Even the state government cannot. They have to file a suit. For that, provision 175 is there. 175 gives power to file a suit. And one example for the same, which is mostly it is used, is section 42, which we just discussed, selling of the land to the person who is not a scheduled caste and a scheduled tribe. Because mostly what is done is the person where their court is, like the scheduled caste person sells a land to me, and I start going and cultivating the same. I cultivate the same for a year or two, and the girdavaris are recorded. Girdavari is a crop-wise annual register, wherein for each crop, the Patwari goes and records that in which biga what is sown, chola, chana, what is sown. So it is that detailing the revenue officers go. For each biga, each crop, a register is maintained. So and who is cultivating the same? So if he goes and find, okay, Mr. B.S. Sandhu is cultivating, and if he says, no, the land belongs to some Bawari, then he would report the same to the Tahsildar that somebody else is in possession, because they cannot even sublet. The scheduled caste person also cannot sublet the same for cultivation to any other person. So there they are caught, and then the proceedings under 175 are initiated, and for which also the limitation is provided. And after and by way of suit, they are ejected. So 175 provides for the ejectment by the state, and there are several other conditions which can be, there is a violation of which and for which the suits are initiated, but mostly the suits are for violation of section 42, as what I have come across. Now then comes, what are the suits and who is to hear it? Now, this is consolidatedly provided in section 207. Suits and applications cognizable by revenue courts only. This section provides for two things. One, it provides for a specific schedule, which is the third schedule. Now, if you see a third schedule, it is exhaustive. It provides for what is the suit, which suit is to be filed, what all suits and applications can be filed, before whom it is to be filed, what is the court fees. It is an exhaustive schedule. If you see this, you will understand the entire Tenancy Act, like what all suits are filed and before which authority it is filed. It is exhaustive. So this is third schedule you will find. And so two things, section 207 provides that all the suits and applications of the nature specified in third schedule shall be heard and determined by a revenue court. Second is very important, which we the suits, the disputes which come to Rajasthan High Court. No court other than the revenue court shall take cognizance of any such suit or application, or any suit or application based on a cause of action in respect of which any relief could be obtained by means of any such suit or application. Now, read with this is section 256. We have to read both these sections together. This is to section 256, bar to jurisdiction of civil courts. So it specifically bars the jurisdiction of civil courts wherein any cause of action arises or any suit or application which can be filed under the Land Revenue Act. Now, what are those application and suits? That is third schedule. So section 207, 256 and third schedule are to be read together. So whenever a question arises as to any cause of action arises and that suit has to be filed before a revenue court, the jurisdiction of the civil courts are barred. The CPC also provides that for everything that the civil courts have jurisdiction to hear every suit unless it is barred. So this bar is provided under 256. So there is a specific bar of hearing the land revenue cases. Now, I'll give you an example. We'll go to the schedule. The schedule is also divided into various suits and applications. First part is the schedules and second part is the applications. The suits, I'll just tell you one or two what are the kinds of suit. Like section 32 provides a suit for obtaining lease or counterpart, suit for division of the holdings, suit for injunction, then suit for declaration of the plaintiff's right as tenant, as khudkash, as subtenant. So these are the types of suits. Suit for ejectment of trespasser. So these are the types of suit. Now, if you want to file a suit for declaratory of khatidari rights, it's a suit for declaration. You can always go to a civil court and file that, okay, this is the land and declare me as a khatidar land. Can you file it? You can't. Why? Because section 207 and 256 says when any suit or any application can be filed before a revenue court, they cannot take cognizance. Similarly, so broadly, for any agricultural land, any rights attached to the agricultural land for which you need to agitate your cause, for which you need to get a declaration or protect your ejectment, the remedy lies under the Land Revenue Act, and the proceedings are barred. Now, even if there are few cases, there are some technical issues, like on an agricultural land, our industry is going on. So, does it give rise to a civil dispute because somebody says that that person is ejecting me out of the factory? It is a commercial activity and there is no agricultural activity going on. But however, in that case also we have a judgment of this honorable court that unless and until till the time it is an agricultural land and it is not converted, the suit and remedy lies before the revenue courts, because you are seeking an injunction for not to be ejected from a land which is an agricultural land. So remedy lies there. Now, next question sometimes comes is the cancellation of the sale deeds. Suppose a joint family property is there and father sells a property of his minors, which is always disputed without and it is stated once the parents when the children get major, they say there was no need and there was no need to sell the land and there is nothing stated in the sale deed to have sold. Therefore, he has gone beyond his rights to sell our share of land, which is a joint holding or joint HUF property, Hindu United Family Property. So they file a suit for cancellation of the sale deed. But here also, what is to be determined first is the khatidari rights. Is the share of the minor or the person in the land, which is an agricultural land. So if the sale deed is not void and it is voidable, then you have to get the land share of the person determined, khatidari rights determined, for which you have to go to the revenue courts. And if it is a void document, then you can go to the civil courts, certainly to the civil courts. Now, the latest judgment on this issue is given by Justice Bansali. This is reported in 2018 to DNJ, Rajasthan, page 421, Hasti Cement Private Limited. Now, it concludes that wherein there is the suit for herein the suit was filed before the civil court, an application under 711 was filed stating that the cause of action herein and the dispute regarding which the suit is filed is a revenue land. So go before the revenue court. Now, this application was rejected against which the application, this suit was filed. It was against which this writ petition was filed. The order was upheld. It was held by the court that the suit would continue before the civil court because the rights are to be, it pertains to the cancellation of the sale deed, and the sale deed is not void, it is voidable. Another aspect is to be seen that it is not only the prayer which has to be seen. There are judgments of full bench judgment right from 1965 through 70s that while concluding that which court is to hear, whether it's a revenue court or a civil court, the whole substance of the pleading has to be seen, not only the prayer. Because you can, in the pleadings, you can narrate everything about your khatari rights, and in the last you may say that the sale deed may be cancelled. That won't work, because if it deals with this determination of the khatari rights or any rights of the agricultural land, then you will have to go before the revenue court. This is a specific bar created, and these are the several 711 petitions which come to the Honorable High Court of Rajasthan are pertaining to this section, applicability of this 207 and 256. Now, another important section is section 251 and 251A. 251 deals with the opening of the way. If on an agricultural land and way is closed, then it provides with the powers to the state government to open the same. Subsequently, and section 251 came to be added, which is an important section. This section deals with laying of underground pipelines or opening a new way through another khatidar holding in or enlarging the existing way. So this is important in the sense that it provides for laying down of the pipelines. Now we have several oil companies who are running, who are laying down the pipelines to the length and breadth of the country. No, you cannot keep on acquiring the lands for that purpose because the line is underneath the land. So this section is used by them also, and the pipelines are laid under the land, or for any agricultural purpose also. If you want to lay down a pipeline for water also, so this can be laid down, which is under this section. And if the earlier there was no section for opening a new way under the Tenancy Act, because it only 251 only talked about the opening of the way which was closed. So there has to be a way which needs to be opened, but there was no way, no sex provision for opening of a new way. Suppose I need a rasta to my fields, then there was no provision. So this 251 gives the power to the authorities to open a new way as well. So I think that will be all now. It's 1 hour. And we have discussed both the acts, that is the Rajasthan Land Revenue Act and the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, broadly, not very minutely, but broadly you have the overall idea of what do they deal with and what kind of land is involved and what kind of people are involved and what these acts broadly want to do. So that's it. Then we'll conclude here, and thank you all for giving me a patient hearing.
Baljinder, great. We won't leave you so quickly. Guys, you can see such a wide subject which take years of practice if somebody can encapsulate it in an hour, I think it is just tremendous. It only shows that, the more you read, the more concise you can get. As the saying goes, that if you can't explain it simply to people, then you have not understood it yourself. And this is what happens when have got such a wide body of work behind you, so that you can explain it so succinctly, and in an hour's time. It's unimaginable you to going through the whole process. Thank you, Baljinder, for that. We are running out of time, but we can take two quick questions just to keep the momentum going. I
Sir, so the questions have been posted on the chat.
Sorry.
That is technical for me.
No, that's all right. Shambhavi, can you just speak out your question? The
Yes.
first one.
Shambhavi, can you
Can you
speak?
hear me? Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my first question is, what is the difference between a khatidar tenant under the Tenancy Act and a khatidar under the Land Revenue, and when do you know which act to apply?
Khatedar is only one. There is no khatedar under the Land Revenue Act, and there is no different khatedar under the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. There is only one khatedar. As I explained, it's a bank. Land is a bank. You are account holder. And account holder बैंक में उसको खाता धारक कहते हैं, अपने उसको खातेदार कहते हैं. So there is only one khatedar. Land Revenue Act is a procedure law. Only Rajasthan Tenancy Act deals with the khatedar tenant. You will only find this name khatedar in Rajasthan Tenancy Act. You will not find this name in Rajasthan Land Revenue Act.
Okay. So, sir, whenever an issue involves a khatidar, you know that Tenancy Act has to apply.
Tenancy Act has to apply. Tenancy Act is the only act which deals with the rights and liabilities. The Land Revenue Act do not deal with the rights and liabilities of the tenants.
Right.
Only
And just my second question.
Yes.
We keep reading about different terms such as murabba, cha, kitta, ragba, sometimes yards, hectares. It gets confusing because I don't think they're defined. So how do you know?
Yes, actually, what earlier there were several measurements applicable. It was like killa. Killa is a term used in Punjab, and this biga. Biga is what we generally use. And now they have come out with a unified term, which is the hectare. Now, in all Jamabandis, you will find the term hectare. Measurements written in hectare. Fifth column of Jamabandi says Kshetrafal. Kshetrafal is hectares. Earlier, because in the entire state, somewhere the biga was like measurement in Jodhpur is 130 into 130. 135 or 135 feet into 135 is 1 biga. If you go to Ganganagar, it is 160 feet into 160 feet. So the measurements change. So now they have come up with a unified measurement, which is the hectares. Mostly the 4 hectares in Ganganagar area makes 4 bigas in Ganganagar area make 1 hectare. And in Udaipur zone, 6 bigas make 1 hectare. Because their measurement of bigas is small. So all of the terms which are there, they biga, killa, hectare, acre, they all are measurements which are types of measurements, and they deal with the land only. It is land only. 1 बीघा जमीन मतलब वो 1 बीघा जमीन है, वो 1 एकड़ जमीन, एक उसका मेजरमेंट बड़ा होगा बट वो जमीन है. 1 हेक्टेयर 1 हेक्टेयर भूमि, उसका मेजरमेंट और बड़ा हो गया पर है वो जमीन ही. So these are different measurement terms used for a land, but now we are unified to using it as a hectares now.
Okay, thank you, sir. That answers my query.
Thank you, Shambhavi. I think Harsh had a question. Harsh, are you there?
Oh, yes, sir. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You had a question which you sent on the chat. Can you ask?
Yes, sir. Who are Gair Khatedars and Gair Mumkin Khatedars, and what are their rights in land laws?
As I said, the difference between khatedar and gair khatedar is nothing. Khatedar rights are both inheritable and transferable.
Okay.
These are two material things and ownership. They do not have an absolute ownership. Under the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, all the agriculturists are tenants. They are not owners. Owner is the state,
Okay.
but they have
Hmm. Sorry.
these rights. The gair khatedars do not have these transferable rights. The gair khatedars are the persons to whom the land is given for cultivation, but somehow the khatedari rights cannot be given to them. Like they are given the land of a tank bed or a pasture land, because sometimes the pasture lands, the tank beds, or when the water drains out, are given for cultivation. But upon these lands, the khatedari rights are barred under section 16 of the Rajasthan Tenancy Act. No khatedari rights can accrue, but they can cultivate. So therefore, they are gair khatedars. They remain to be gair khatedars. It is inheritable, but they do not have any transferable rights. Another set of gair khatedars are the person to whom the lands are allotted under the Colonization Act. The Colonization Act is a specific act which therein Indira Gandhi Canal colony area is there, Gang Canal colony area was there, wherein a specific colony was developed for allotment of the land. Then the applications are called for, land is allotted, and the sanad, that is the khatedari, is issued after 10 years. It provides that khatedari sanad would be issued after 10 years, because they would see that because it is always on concessional prices. When anything is given on concessional price, then the state government always sees that you yourself utilize it, is not a trading. So to prohibit the trading, these persons are allotted the land, and because as soon as you give the khatedari rights, you are giving them right to transfer. Therefore, the tag is given of 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, and after that the khatedari rights are given and sanad is issued. Therefore, until then they are called as gair khatedars. So there are two sets which are known as the gair khatedar tenants.
Thank you, sir.
I think one of the questions was by, I think, Priyanka, which was on tank beds. Is that correct? Priyanka, can you ask a question? Can you hear us? I think her question was with regard that what is tank bed land for cultivation?
Tank beds are the natural, like we have this Sardar Samand.
Okay, which are basically next to the water tanks.
You can say. So once the water drains out, now the land is very precious. Now that they are wetlands, there is water contaminant, and they have quality to produce the crop. So they are given for cultivation. They are tank beds. When the water drains out, they are given for cultivation. So they can
Lovely.
take
So
out
I
one
think-
crop until the rains arrive.
Lovely. So that answers some of the questions. Yes, you had briefly discussed on that big debate and litigation that used to come and still does on Section 42 on SC/ST transfer lands.
Yes.
And those judgments are by Justice Mathur and Justice Kothari. Justice Mathur's judgment was overturned by the Supreme Court later on. And then the request sort of guideline by Justice Kothari that a law needs to be amended. Thereafter, just for an information, we had a matter wherein the validity of Section 42 was challenged. I think Manish Shishodia ji is the one who was the lawyer in that cases. And that was dismissed. The constitutional validity was upheld by the Rajasthan High Court. And we do not know what has been the fate, whether it went to Supreme Court or not, or if it is still pending. But Supreme Court is yet to work on that. That has been, we'll check with Shishodia ji of what, what's been done. But here it was dismissed. Yes, because there are a lot of those questions that are rightly raised, because it's actually leading to a lot of loss of value to the land. And
it goes both ways.
both ways, that's right.
Once it is open, you won't find any land with the SC/ST people.
Absolutely,
Within
absolutely,
years, it will go.
absolutely. it's easy to say that let market work, but actually we know how things pan out.
Yes,
And
because
some people can't protect their own lands, which is a fact.
they won't be able to.
And the same issues actually ran into the constitutional mandate of the tribal areas. There was a huge debate which came in, and then Samta judgment was there, and thereafter it was watered down later on by the Balco judgment. And the debate is still on, but a lot of it was watered down by Balco judgment. Also, the other issue that you raised, which is currently, you rightly pointed out, I think the most amount of litigation comes in where they have the dispute is between what is void and what is voidable,
Yes,
to
yes.
determine on what the jurisdiction would be. And therein, Justice Ansali's judgment that you had referred, I think this could be a great homework for all those that were listening to go back and really try and understand the distinction between what is void and what is voidable. In academic discourses or even while arguing, we invariably end I think they ought not to be used interchangeably.
Yes.
And there's a very thin line of distinction, requires a lot of effort and understanding the fine distinctions between
Very
the
thin
two
line there
to
is.
be able to then eventually also fight in courts, because small changes can lead to a difference in what comes out of the transaction, void or voidable, and that just completely changes the game, both as as your rights as well as your outcomes of the litigation. But all in all, just a wonderful session. Baljinder, great how you could just compress it in an hour. I'm still amazed. And as I, originally when I started it, I'll give you a glimpse of how the character traits of a counsel we all want to imbibe. But all of you, I think now shouldn't be surprised at just how, 25 years ago, all the college girls just wanted to give their hearts out to him. Now all the judges want to just give in the orders to him. And it's not difficult to understand when you get to try and communicate when he's communicating with you and how it translates his understanding to you. Really wonderful. I think it will be Baljinder, it will be a great thing for all our young lawyers and colleagues to know you as the academic man behind the lawyer that they see every day. They really don't get to see the academic side.
I'm
Thank
always
you for sparing that time. And thank you everyone who joined in, both all from Legalsphere, as well as we today had a lot of colleagues joining us from outside our office also. Thank you. You keep joining in. It was a long session, but I think it was totally worth it. Tomorrow we convene for a session by Sharat Kothari on GST and its issues. I hope we'll continue to make use of whatever the situation is. Baljinder, once again, thank you. Great
Thank you so
to
much.
have you here. Thank you so much.
Always.
Samarpit, thank you for coordinating and
Thank you, sir.
and hosting it as ever. Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Take care. See you.